satellites? A satellite represents a journey, information gathering, this journey around the Earth.
Welcome to Satellite Haiku.
Mm-hmm.
My name's Milo.
My name is Sean.
All right.
Welcome to Satellite Haiku.
Welcome to Satellite Haiku. We were talking about, it's almost like a first world problem when you have your something set to full screen on the computer and you can't get out of there. Like you can't get to other apps easily, or you're confused, especially. So anyway, in the corporate world, during that nasty pandemic Zoom call hell that we were in, right? I was always in Google Meets. And every once in a while, I do not know why, but like I'd get on the call and then something that I've been playing in another tab, actually if I would restart my computer, all of these YouTube tabs would start playing at once.
Oh my gosh, yeah. YouTube, that's so annoying. Like every YouTube URL decides to autoplay as soon as it loads. And so if you have five, I think you can change that setting, but it shouldn't be the default.
It's really, and so especially I have probably, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna tell the group exactly how many tabs I have open. Yikes! Doesn't it? Where's there?
Well, you count them. I have a system. So I have multiple windows with multiple tabs because my system is kind of like each browser window is sort of like a job, like a project in a way, right?
Yeah.
And that project may involve 7 or 8 or 15 tabs.
I do exactly the same.
Right.
Thing.
So if I'm trying to research something, like I'll open a new browser window to research that thing.
Yep.
And then then I have 15 tabs for that thing in that window. But then I have another window where I'm writing something, and I'll have 8 tabs in that window open for writing that thing or whatever. Yeah.
And do you?
So each window is a project, basically.
Exactly the same with me. Like I kind of sort them by I have like a personal bill paying one with all the tabs. I just hate searching for the.
Right.
So anyway, but also I use Command or Apple tilde, and it cycles through the windows of a program.
Oh yeah, I know I can do that. I don't generally do that because I kind of know where to find everything. But yeah.
But yeah, and then. It is fun to know keystrokes and to be able to pound your way through. But you're right. Once you go to full screen, especially like you're watching a Netflix film in Chrome, you can literally somehow get out of there and not be able to find it again. It's just amazing.
Totally.
So I had a thought. I kind of wanted to revisit. I guess it was 2 episodes ago we were talking about kind of like wisdom and what it meant to have
the paradox of wisdom.
Yeah.
And
you called me out on, I said there's certain things I feel like I kind of just became more Gandalf-like about, like I kind of, Gandalf the White. And you were like, I bet, if this happened again, it would be kind of blow your socks off. It would rock your world, right? And of course that's true. But I think what I was thinking when I was imagining that is my first relationship, my first 17-year marriage, there was an infidelity factor.
Yeah.
For the last 3 or 4 years, and it was such a struggle for me not to sort of make it about me, like something's wrong with me, So
100%. That just drills into your insecurities, that stuff. I remember having that experience for sure.
And so in the reason I can kind of say that it didn't then I probably had over the next 15 years. Multiple relationships, maybe 7 or 8 relationships. And if that came up again, it was so much easier to just be like, oh, then it's over. That was a non-negotiable. I wrote that into the code, and if that happened, that equals you're done. And I broke up with these people. And so that felt like a superpower because the first time it was like mayhem and so much work, Sisyphean task to shift myff with therapy
Right. Go ahead. Sorry, I won't.
Well, no. I was kind of done.
I have a thought. Yeah.
Yeah, but Go
ahead. Yeah. You say you finish your thought.
So really, that's what I was referring to is looking back at a shift in me, and I'm going to bring it up later in the episode about, for instance, I used to have I had a big shift where I was dealing with one of the our business partners, or sort of a guy that we were partnering with. And when I would talk to them, they were older than me and had a much more powerful position. And I would get so nervous, my throat would get tight and I would start to sweat. And then I had kind of a breakthrough where I got sort of annoyed that they were sort of mistreating me. And so it helped me feel like much more confident about. Anyway, so I'll go on and say what you're going to say, because my thing's a little bit.
Well, what I was going to say is that, like, I think my pushback on that was only that not every time, but so many times in my life where I thought I had achieved some breakthrough or like arrived at I leveled up, so to speak, which is kind of what you're describing, I feel like, right?
Yeah, totally.
Then like, a situation would arise where that thing I thought I had solved in myself comes roaring back. And it turns out like it was sort of a false positive. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was led into a false sense of security about my own wisdom. So for example, what could have happened, I'm not saying this is what happened, but with the infidelity stuff, right? Like that sense of betrayal, it could have been just the unique way that you were vulnerable in that relationship made you vulnerable to those feelings, right? And so then what could have been happening is you were protecting yourself in subsequent relationships in such a way and not allowing yourself to be equally vulnerable, or you had armor around parts of yourself that you weren't even aware of. And so like infidelity would not have bothered you in those relationships, but it wasn't because you kind of had achieved some level of wisdom. It could have been because you were actually kind of like hindering or protecting part of yourself and not being your full self, right? And so I guess all I'm saying is like, each time I've had so many lessons in life where I feel like, oh, I've arrived, like I get it now. And then something happens where I do the same thing, or I do something so similar enough to that same, and I go, I'm not there where I thought, I'm not where I thought I had arrived, right? So I guess that's kind of what I'm saying. Like each time I think I've leveled up, one of the things that seems to happen is I become aware of how unleveled up I really am. Like even more aware, right?
Totally, I get it.
And so I guess like each time I think I've solved something, I'm even more willing to be open to the possibility that I probably haven't actually solved that. And I may be deluding myself.
And in some ways, I think we're talking very much about the same thing, and there's a little bit of semantic parallel. Like for instance, I'll describe a situation. So a family friend or an acquaintance of ours had asked, who has a business in town, had asked, how much would it be to hire you for the week? And I didn't know what it was for. Like I thought it was for video. And they wanted me to go and do photos for their business. And so I said, well, I really need to know. I know what I would charge you if you were charging me if I was shooting video for you. But I need to know, like, what's the scope of work? I really had a lot of questions. Yeah. And I went and met with them. I looked at what they had going on. I said, I really don't think that you're going to get the most bang for your buck by, like, I'm not trying to talk myself out of a job, but it just looks like there's too many variables, and it's going to be like, I'm
going to charge you a lot for this because,
and you're not going to get anything in return. And he's like, I don't mind at all. And I was like, I've had this experience with a friend, where the expectations were sort of low, and then it blew up, and I don't even talk to that friend anymore. In fact, there was one I had anyway. So then I kind of thought, I have a better idea. What if I take the photos you already have, and I fix them in Photoshop? Like you tell me what's wrong with them, and I'll fix them, and I'm really fast, in Photoshop. Yeah. And I said, it's this much per hour, and it's going to be this many hours. And he wrote back and just said, he's basically like cut my fee in half and was like, I'm ready to write you a check for this much, and you just work all week, and I don't really care if you clock in or out, but tell me when you're done. And it just felt so riddled with potential passive
red flags were flying
everywhere. Little like you're walking through the garden and there's like those wire sticks with. I was like, oh my gosh, I can tell that there's too many things that could go wrong.
Right.
I wouldn't hire me that way. Like I wouldn't say, and I know this guy's a businessman and he's pretty, not, I wouldn't say cutthroat, but like a sharp,
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know where it's going to land, but I just wrote back this long. So I got stung. I felt stung when he cut my fee in half and just sort of assumed that was fine. Like, he just wrote, I'm ready to write you a check for like half of what you asked for. And I was like, and get started right away. And I'm like,
congratulations for being ready.
Yeah, exactly. So I had, and I've already invested like 3 hours with this guy to sort of understand what he needs.
Yeah.
So I just was stung, and I remember thinking, Milo's a sensitive, like the inner Milo child gets stung.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if I take a breath and just don't write back right away,
Yeah.
keep doing some manual labor. I was fixing the roof, trimming tree branches. And then I just sat down and wrote like a pretty nice long email that was very grounded, where I said, I'm too old and experienced to negotiate my rates. Like I still think I could add value, but from my experience in the corporate world, like I was about 3 to 4 times faster than the other graphic designers on my team.
Yeah.
When it came to like Photoshop or InDesign, I was very, very quick at it. So I was like, so in some ways, it doesn't really make sense to hire me by the hour. I shouldn't be hiring myself out by the hour, because I can do 3 to 4 times as many photos. Maybe we should just come up with a per photo price, which would take some testing to figure out what it's worth to you, and we could find the sweet spot. It's like, I'm still open to finding how I could add value to your business and help you launch your website, but I just don't think we're there yet,
Yeah, yeah.
And so writing that back felt I was no longer stung. I let the sting go by. So I guess what it is, the wisdom isn't that like I wasn't stung. The wisdom is that like I waited when I was stung and worked through my mindset shift. And
right.
So, so that's
no. I mean that's great. That's great. I think that I mean, again, like whenever that kind of stuff, I always wonder, like, am I different, or is this situation different somehow? Like, because, for example, so like another person, it might be possible that a different person could be like sending you a similar email, and just because of your relationship with that other person, there is no sting at all, right? Like if there's something about that relationship. And then you solve that and you go, okay, well, now I've leveled up, and it doesn't even sting when they say stuff like that, because I have the inner strength or whatever. But then, tomorrow somebody else in your life does something similar and it stings, and you go, oh, I'm not over getting stung. It's just there's something about that relationship where I solved it. Like I don't know, my do you know Joyce Carol Oates, right? The author?
I do, but I'm not that familiar. I couldn't like name one of her books.
I saw a thread on
Carol Oates.
I guess that she and Elon Musk had like a little like beef on Twitter. I'm not going to call it what do you, an excrete? Yeah, that's an excrete. Yeah, so she excreted on X something about how it's interesting. I don't think she even named him. I didn't see the actual firsthand. I saw like somebody kind of talking about this, but she kind of said something like, it's funny how isn't it interesting that the richest man in the world never talks about the like ordinary pleasures that like virtually every human being will tweet about, like a good meal, a friendship, like a beautiful day, like just normal. Like, it's just interesting that this guy who's the richest man in the world seems so impoverished in this other way.
Yeah.
But she didn't name Elon Musk, but it was obvious she was talking about him, right? And he lost his fucking, like he lost his mind over it.
Wait, did she tag him? Did she?
She just tweeted, and I think people kind of like knew that she was talking about, but she's famous enough, she has a high enough profile that somehow he got wind of it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And he replied, he got like 3 days of like ranting about this back at her and all this, right? And I just thought, like, there is the fragilest ego ever, right? Like Trump is like that too. Like the lowest, most anonymous random person could make some comment, and it can touch a nerve with those guys.
Yeah.
And so it's so interesting. And I think that, what you were talking about with like just things not stinging, I think about some of my exchanges with my 2 brothers, and like, my younger brother calls me a Nazi, and like, you know what I mean? Like he just endless, like, and it doesn't bother me it bothers me that it bothers me that we have that relationship where like we have there's nothing there anymore, kind of. Mm-hmm. But like he can call me whatever he wants. It doesn't. He can like he tries really hard. Like he used to be pretty good at pushing buttons, and he would try to find that like one thing that you feel like where you feel insecure, and he would kind of zero in on it. And I think that he used to be able to do that with me when I was younger. But it is so funny. Like I can see him trying to do that and trying to like, you know, tell, even putting like really a lot of effort into trying to like, oh, this will really sting when I say this to Sean. And it just doesn't at all. And so it's kind of like what you're saying. And I don't know what it is exactly. And I don't, you know, like maybe I've leveled up in some way, or maybe it's just that relationship has soured in a certain way where it doesn't bother me. But it is interesting. Like my other brother, I I wrote a thing, this is maybe going almost 2 years ago probably, but he posted some dumbass meme on his Instagram, and he had just been, like his Instagram was just gross to me, like constantly just dumb right-wing propaganda, just reposting stuff, right? And so I just said something like, dude, like, why don't you like try making expressing like an actual argument about something, like a point of view about something, instead of just reposting dumb memes, right? And I don't think I even said that exactly like that, but it's kind of like the gist of what I said was like, it's like so lazy to, and kind of just, it's intellectually lazy to just post propaganda, to post memes. If you feel like you have a point of view about, you know, immigration or Kamala Harris or whatever, like make an argument, like say something, post an idea. And I said that really in a succinct way. And he kind of lost his shit. And I got like, I think like it was just crazy how much that was. It just pissed him off, right? And it's just kind of I don't know. It's just kind of interesting to me because I felt like I'm not criticizing him as a person. It's just like I just think this thing you're doing is dumb, right? And I guess maybe there are things in my life, if somebody said that this thing I'm doing is dumb, maybe I'd lose my shit. But I just kind of felt like that's like, how come, why, you know, if he really feels that strongly that, you know, posting dumb propaganda is like kind of his thing, then just wrote, like, why does it bother him that it bothers me? Like, maybe, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I just felt weird. Like, you know, why doesn't it roll off? You know, like, hey, that's a you problem. If you feel that way about me, that's a you problem. It seems easy enough.
Yeah.
So that feels like a way that I've leveled up. Like in most areas of my life, if somebody has an opinion of me, I sort of feel like, well, that's a you thing.
Yeah. I feel like I have this basket of, like I had talked before, I had about writing a self-help book, not because I love self-help books, but just because I had like, you know, this basket of like 30 little nuggets of wisdom that people had delivered to me sort of at the right time.
Yeah. That
helped me progress and move forward through my grief or my self-doubt or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And one of them was, I was associated with a lot of people who were 12-steppers. And they would literally say, if you complained, they would literally say, sounds like a personal problem to me. Mm-hmm. Or they would say, how's that working out for you?
Yeah.
And you would say, it's not. And they go, well, are you ready for a change? And you know, like it was this little template of like how to distance themselves from being enmeshed with you, you know, because like they know you have to do your work and they can't sort of, you know, like through therapy, one of my therapists once, I had been seeing her for maybe 12 years or something. Mm-hmm. And one day I just said, wow, you know, you give me these nuggets of wisdom and I go and I work them for like 3 months and then I come back to an appointment and you give me another one. Yeah. And I kind of only made appointments when I was stuck, you know. But one day she goes, you know, I could save you like $35,000. My therapy boils down to two things. Yeah. Learn to use I statements and practice owning your own experience.
100%. Yeah. And I say that 100%. Learn to use I statements. Not just use I statements, but think in I statements. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like in some ways, like what I wrote back to that person who was negotiating the fee is like, I feel like I'm too old and experienced. I don't feel good about negotiating my rates. So I'm just not going to. Like, and And no one can argue with how you feel. Like that's why
Right,
I
right.
statements are so powerful. They can't be like, no, you don't feel anxious.
I've gotten in plenty of arguments where, or fights with certain people where, like I will say something, and I'm pretty careful about using I statements, and they'll say, you're accusing me of blah blah blah, or you're criticizing. And I said, did you hear what I said? I said, this is my problem, right? I'm stating it as my problem. Like, I'm confused by this thing that you do or whatever. Like, I'm not saying you're doing the wrong thing. I'm saying I'm confused by it. You could consider it to be 100% my problem. We could try to figure out how to meet in the middle. Like, is there a way you could do that differently so it doesn't confuse me? Possibly. I don't know. But I'm starting with just the admission that thing you do, I find confusing or whatever, right? Like, so I try to bring it, like there are a lot of fights where it's like, the I statement becomes super important because you can kind of return to it and go, just listen again to what I specifically said, which is I am confused when you do that. Like, I don't know what you're doing when you do that or whatever, like whatever the adjective. So it's me. I'm going to just say it's my problem. Like, if you want to change your way of doing it and we want to negotiate and we want to talk about this thing, the context of this thing, and maybe we can arrive at something where I am less confused, and maybe it's because you do something different, or maybe it's just because you've explained it to me better and now I'm not confused, or maybe talking through it right now will make me not confused, whatever. Like, but I'm just starting with the fact that I'm confused.
It reminds me a little bit of the Owen Wilson transparent narrative. Like one sort of one way to present the I statement that I was taught was to say what's coming up for me is frustration and confusion. Like
Yeah.
I'm experiencing frustration because I'm confused, and then I could even sometimes drill back and know where it came from in my family of origin. Like I could be like, my sister used to yell at me and I felt criticized, so I'm being hyper defensive because I feel criticized, and no
Yeah.
one can be like, no, you don't, because you're like, yes,
Right.
yes,
Exactly.
I do.
Yeah. What I tend to run into is that people aren't challenging the feeling. They just hear the phrase differently. Right.
Right.
So, what's coming up for me is blah, blah, blah. I think I tend to be more succinct than that. I don't like to use that kind of phrasing just because it sounds a little too self-helpy and it doesn't feel authentic to me.
Totally.
Doesn't feel like me talking, but yeah.
No, but it's a powerful way to reframe it so that it's clearly it's that you're feeling a certain way. Like what's coming up for me is anger. Doesn't make me so angry, which is so common, right?
Right.
You make me so. What's coming up for me is anger, because other people might be like, oh, I'm not angry. Like the same thing. You say the same thing. So a lot of it is. The
other thing that I think is tied into that is just like a huge nugget of wisdom for me is don't take things personally, which is kind of similar in a way to kind of a couple other things we were saying. Just like it's a you problem.
Yeah.
And so, like, even if the other person isn't using I statements. So especially with kids, like this is a big one, right? Like, my kids will talk back to me or to their mom, or they won't listen, or they'll do something kind of maddening, right? And I think I'm pretty good at not making it about me ever, right? Like, and not attaching some agenda to the thing that they're doing either, right? Like, that's the other thing I think we do often to each other is we, like, oh, he doesn't care about his homework. He doesn't care about getting good grades, or he doesn't care about. It's like, well, he's, reacting in this way in this night about this homework assignment, right? Like, don't add this narrative and don't make it about you. It's just like it's the thing that it is. Let's just focus on the thing that it is. And it could be and so like he's going through maybe he just didn't get enough sleep last night or whatever. Maybe he's hangry. Like there are plenty of other narratives that you could attach. If you're going to just attach a narrative to this thing, why go to like the one that makes him that hangs the most shame on him, right? Like like there's plenty of other narrative. Let's not attach any narratives to it, but like you could attach different ones. Like, maybe he's just hungry.
It's interesting because it feels like in some ways family of origin is an enormous part of the task, because we develop coping mechanisms when, as a child, we become frustrated or angry and don't see a way out. Our brain just looks for a way, a coping mechanism, something to let us, sort of move past what feels like you're stuck, right? And that we develop them, and they're so unconscious, and it starts at really young age, especially if you have siblings. And that how you interact with them when they trigger you, when they criticize you, And I think back I know that it can be annoying when like a psychoanalyst is like, puts you on the bed and like takes you all the way back to your mom or something, but a lot of times it's actually true that like that's where you develop that response or reaction.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of that generational trauma, right? Like, like in the sort of the grand arc of things, hopefully we're a little better at self-reflection and, self-regulation than our parents were. And a lot of that has to do with they raised us a little better than their parents did. And hopefully we're giving our own kids a little bit better toolkit than we were raised with, right? Like
one example I'm going to use a yoga analogy. So we had this Sanskrit scholar who would come through and do lectures. His name is Douglas Brooks. And he once was asking, we were kind of talking about the definition of yoga in general, not necessarily like hatha poses, but just like the concept of personal growth through yoga practices. And he said, in some ways you could boil it down to expanding the threshold before your recoil. Actually, this wasn't Douglas Brooks, it was Lee Loswick. But basically, like you're practicing to expand and then defining recoil as where the number of options has collapsed down to where it feels like one, which is to be angry or something, right? Like, and you're trying to produce a library of options that are better than that collapsed reaction. Like almost like fight or flight is like the baseline. That's what you do when you're threatened.
Right.
And if you could expand the possibilities of how, and he called it, you're shifting from a reaction to what I would call a response. Almost like if you're...
Which is like meditation is trying to get you to that same place, right?
Exactly.
Like yoga, meditation, I mean, those are two obviously very, very much related practices. But yeah, I mean, you're trying to get to that same place of like being able to see yourself clearly and see the situation clearly. So that you go, oh, I see anger welling up in me. I see it. There it is. And you're kind of... And you want, like, ideally, you want to be in a place where you're kind of curious and interested that it's there.
Yeah.
And you're not judging it. And you're not only are you not judging it, but I mean, you're also obviously not letting it sort of take over, right?
Right.
But you're also not killing it either. Like, I think that's another thing that people think, through meditation, through yoga, that you are somehow developing this ability to just get rid of that anger, to wave it away. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that I used to sort of look at it that way too with meditation. Like anger is a big issue for me, and I would go, well, like I'm feeling anger, I'm going to breathe it away. Like I'm going to just breathe through it, and it'll be gone. And what I learned about myself is that doesn't work. Like what works for me is to see it and to acknowledge it and to be with it and to sort of almost like it's like a little child losing its temper. Like you wouldn't kick it out of the room. Right?
Right.
You would sit down and say, hey, let's sit together for a bit. Right? And you would just sit quietly with that child, hopefully. And maybe you don't say anything, but you're just sitting there and you're being present with that little angry child, right? And you're letting it be what it is until it doesn't need to be that anymore. So there's a difference between doing that and like kicking it out of the room. Right? And so I think that that's, for me, part of that process that you described of like of developing a response instead of a reaction is just like, for me, a big part of that response is seeing the thing for what it is.
Right. Yeah. And to have space from it so that it doesn't feel like that's all you are is angry. Like there's me being angry again. And then the other thing,
but in a loving way, like having a loving, for me, it's about like that part of me is also still lovable.
Yeah.
Right. That anger reaction that I'm having, it is still a lovable part of me, and I can sit with it, and I can kind of hold it. in my best moments.
The other thing that Douglas Brooks did actually say was, he goes, while you're doing this process where you're like taking this small library of possibilities, like that you would call the reaction library, like the things you could do that are fight or flight, or he goes, and then you're trying to produce a response, which is a thoughtful like selection of the best idea, so, and it takes a while to do that. Like it's obviously reactions are like, when you touch a hot stove, you've got the spinal cord information. It doesn't even hit the processor. It just, that's like in the library of things that happen when that happens, right?
Yeah.
So you're trying to make it send more stuff to the processor, and so you're contemplate. And he goes, and keep in mind that in almost every situation, there will be an unseen possibility that you'll only see in hindsight. And to live in the uncertainty that you're going to make a selection out of all the things the possibilities for a response, knowing that in almost every case, there's probably a better response that you will only be able to see in hindsight. And that's like a cool thing, because then you're just like,
cool. Yeah.
It's cool, right?
Yeah. I think one thing I want to say though, like, I think that for me, one of the things I don't want to do in that situation is, like I think about this sort of the dichotomy of mind and heart, and so like there is this idea that like the way to avoid a reaction is to kind of take things up into your mind and brain more, and not like have them in your body. I think that's not the right way to think about it, though. I think that I think my tendency is to overbrain things, to over intellectualize things, right, in general. And so like I don't want to make that, I don't want to use that as my toolkit for this kind of situation where I go, oh, I'm going to step back and think about that and come up with the best response in some sort of intellectual way.
Right.
Like for me, that sort of defeats, that's not wisdom to me. Like that's just a different kind of self-protection that is that doesn't lead to any real growth for me. And so, yeah, I think like what I would ideally want to achieve in that situation is something that feels fully integrated, mind and heart fully integrated. And that's why I kind of, because I think my natural tendency is to go, all right, my body, my heart, so to speak, my emotions are reacting in this way, but let me step back and think about what I should be doing. And so then you start using concepts like should, right? And then that to me is venturing into really not productive territory for myself. Like that's kind of, does that make sense?
It totally does. I mean, my analogy about the spinal cord, sending it to the processor, that was just a kind of in some ways flawed, but, and I'm
no,
not.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't think you think about it that way either. I think, but the fact that you articulated that way does make it sound like that's kind of like what you want to do. And I think we both agree that's not exactly right. Yeah.
I do think that there's an interest. Okay. For one thing, I remember, as I started studying different types of yoga, and I'm going to just totally just what's the word? Like destroy by paraphrasing, like classical yoga, which is like Mr. Iyengar, light on yoga, like this had a philosophy that to me, and I had been taught like, basically like, it's sort of like original sin, like Adam and Eve, like everything about you is a dung heap. You're riddled with sins and desires and overwhelmed by things. And that liberation would be to sort of truncate yourself from that stuff that's sinned and that's flawed, to be enlightened and to have this freedom. And Tantra, which is in Kashmir Shaivism, comes along and says, no, it's impossible to separate from. You have to learn to integrate the whole being. And there's parts of yourself that are dark, and there's parts that are beautifully light. And like you have to kind of learn how to put. And in some ways, it's like Swedenborg talks about ordering who's in charge. Like he would say, like if your proprium or your id is in charge, you're in big trouble. But but there's things that the id does really well. If it's in subservience to a higher goal, like a more. So anyway, that's what occurs to me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think about one of the. I haven't had many therapists over the years, but one really powerful thing that my most recent kind of really good therapist sort of bestowed me with is this idea. Like she had this model of emotions or feelings. She didn't distinguish, like in the neuroscience world, in the job I had after we talked about the difference between emotion and feelings. But like for the purposes of this, let's do the same thing. But she kind of, her sort of thing was that there's only 5 emotions. So joy, sadness, fear, anger, and sexual feeling. Those were her 5, right? And so all these other things we kind of name as emotions, say guilt or shame, regret, envy, whatever. All of those, she would say, are an emotion that you have plus a story that you're attaching to it. And so the difference between those things for her is that an emotion is a purely somatic thing. So anger is a thing that happens in your body. And so, whereas something like envy is a thing that you have that. Envy might involve a mix of emotions. You might feel anger and sadness and fear maybe. But you're also attaching this other thing to it that turns it into envy. And so she always had me go through this exercise of like, what emotions am I feeling in this moment and where am I feeling them and how are they manifesting, right? And it always had to be physical. Like if I'm feeling fear, if I say fear, like where is it in my body and what is it doing there, right? And I found that to be a super useful way of thinking about emotions being like just a somatic thing. And it's kind of, for me, that's one of those tools that I use to help integrate when I'm having that reaction, to help integrate that reaction into an integrated response, or to help to move that reaction into an integrated response is to be able to see that thing that I'm feeling, but to see it like it is a somatic experience at its core, right? Like that anger I'm feeling, what is it? Ultimately, it's just my body doing something.
If it's okay, I want to tell a story about a shift that I had. So I was, for 3.5 years, like I had a partner who was deeply embedded in the Tibetan Buddhism. There's like a school in Arizona, and like they do retreats, and a famous Geshe Michael Roach was a famous sort of I don't know, what do you call those guys, lama or something?
Yeah,
he's a priest,
some kind of guru.
Yeah, a priest. I mean, he wore the red robes and was,
okay.
It's a Dalai Lama's tradition. It was that school.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so I had this interesting relationship with them where I would go along and I would listen to the lectures, and the karma mechanism, like the sort of the creation model or the karma creation model, just didn't work for me. But I would like sometimes pull like really helpful nuggets of wisdom out by reinterpreting it. And so here's my example.
Yeah.
I'm going through my divorce. I'm really confused. I'm sad. I'm blaming myself. Like at every turn, I'm like, this is happening to me literally because I suck. I don't know why I suck, but that's why it's happening. Like, you know? And in some ways, I was grateful that that was my reaction, because I'd seen a lot of people who got angry and violent and just did things that they regretted. And mine was deeply
yours was directed inwardly,
100, like collapsing and crushing, and sort of like a demo.
And you had you had some sort of strength in a way and will to be able to contain that, but it's also extreme, rather than, because I think a lot of the people who lash out, maybe it comes from that same feeling. They're not necessarily blaming somebody else. They're feeling deeply empty and shamed, and they're unable to hold that, so they reflect it out into violence or whatever.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
So like in a way that means you had the strength to kind of hold that, even though what a dark thing to hold, and not what a sort of an untruthful thing to hold.
It's funny because like I would never take any credit for that. Like that's just who I am, and what it's like, how we're bags of hormones sloshing around, and it's like I didn't do any mindset work or growth work to get there. That's my point. Right. That was just what happened. So, but anyway, so I go to this lecture, and it's about spiritual partnership, and I'm sitting there, and the guy is saying, this very classic Tibetan Buddhism thing where he's saying everything that's happening to you, you're sitting in a movie theater and everything that is on the screen is being projected onto the screen from your mind. Your karma is creating the experience that you're having. So I get up and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm causing my own divorce. Like I'm causing myself to be miserable. What the fuck? So I'm walking around out in the rose garden at the break, and one of my friends comes up to me who's studied this for years, and she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I just had this interesting thought, because I don't buy that in the past, like a past life caused this. I said, but I think the root cause of all my suffering is that I'm my own personal identity is only defined by external inputs. Like that I'm a good husband, that my wife loves me, that I'm in a safe marriage. And I think in the past, like my childhood, my teen years, that I hadn't really sat down and gotten to know me without external affirmation. And if I do that, I said, I can go back and correct that. Like that's the karmic correction for me, is I can just get to fucking know myself so that when something comes along that would normally knock me off of my balance, I would just know that that's your problem. Oh, great. Thanks for letting me know. Like, how's that working for you? Instead of like, oh, it's me, I suck. And so that's what I had done, that spin, and it really helped me. Like I just, and I told my friend that, and she's like, the Buddhists totally don't believe what you're saying, but if it works for you, go for it, because that sounds really cool. Like a cool way to a mindset shift.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think, I mean, that kind of goes back to this idea that, it's a you problem, right? Like the idea that, somebody else's opinion of you is their thing, but your own opinion of you is also this thing that you've created somehow, and it's a you problem, and you can change it. I think that there's one thing that kind of that helps me. I think that sort of connects with that same thing, or like helps lead me to that same skill almost, is like that notion of the present moment, right? Like accepting the present moment. And so like whatever is the bad thing going on in your life, the divorce or whatever, like all of that there's all this stuff that already happened and it's made you feel a certain way. But in any present moment, you always have the opportunity to just be different. So accepting the present means accepting it is what it is. It doesn't mean endorsing it. It doesn't mean you were sort of embracing it. It's just accepting it. Like accepting it means just seeing it, right? Like, okay, so my life is kind of shitty at this very moment. Like it just is what it is. But that's just this, all that is just this moment. And it kind of, for me, takes a lot of power out of it. And also helps with that same shift of like, I can just, in the very next moment, I can see things differently if I decide to, right? Like, so I think, that present moment is another one for me that connects to that helps me with that same process.
Have you? I mean, so at one point at the beginning of my divorce, I moved down the street to another house. I was renting it, and so half the time, and we were split the kids 50-50. So half the time I was alone, and I was so anxious. I had tons of cortisol. I was losing weight. I could eat, but it would just go right through me, And I go to my therapist, and she said, she goes, what would it be like to just embrace the you that's fully grieving? And I said, it feels like if I were to fully embrace or allow that to be me, this fully brokenhearted person, that I would end up in the gutter with a needle in my arm. And she goes, this is brutal. She goes, well, as someone who's been in the gutter with a needle in my arm, I can tell you that you don't end up there from embracing your full self. You end up there from running from yourself. And I was like, duh! Like it just kicked my ass. Like it was like, she kicked me in the balls.
Well, the other thing kind of implicit in that too is that like Yeah, you could, right? Like even if you end up in the gutter, then you still have the ability to end up like me, where I am now. Like the gutter isn't always even the end, right?
That's true. Yeah. She didn't even
So
take
that's
it that
kind of
far.
built into that.
That's
That's
built
kind of
into it,
built into that same lesson that she gave you, and it's sort of, I think on the macro level, it's that rupture and repair thing too. Like Germany and Japan were almost just gone from the map at one point as countries, but
Right.
they're very, powerful,
democratic
successful,
countries and successful,
like
great economies.
societies, right? Yeah. So
it's
like,
true.
just because you went through the shit, even if you're in the gutter with a needle, that isn't the end. So when you say I'll end up in the gutter with a, needle in my arm, even that's not the end necessarily, right?
When you were talking about the present
Even in
moment,
that moment, you could go, oh, this is my moment. I'm in the gutter now. But the next moment, I don't have to be.
another thing that I had learned was this idea of incorporating, you mentioned it, curiosity. Because one way to shift your mindset from just this one singular, like you're worried about what's happening or you're sad about the past.
Yeah.
And you can't change the past and worried about the future and you really have no control over it. So why not just be in the present, right? So what was my point?
Curiosity.
Oh yeah. So if you ask the question, wow, Mila's like really strung out here and like pretty dark. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Like what's going to happen next? It's so
Well, curiosity is such a big part of being in the present moment. Like, what is this moment right now?
How
and
cool.
accepting the present moment too. Like, what does it mean to accept this moment? Like, well, first I need to see it. First I need to really see it for what it is, right?
Yeah.
And so that for me is like a big one with, when my kids are just totally dysregulated and throwing their shit, right? Like I don't always find this in myself. Sometimes I take a left turn in ways that I'm really not proud of. But like when I'm doing well, when I do it well, what that usually involves is accepting the moment for what it, like, oh, my daughter's losing her shit right now. And that just is a thing that's happening. Right? Like I can't change the fact that that is the thing right now that is happening. So now what do I do now that I've accepted that is happening? What do I do with that moment? Like in this moment, what do I do with that?
I used that when my kids would have a tantrum.
Yeah.
And they were probably, I don't know, 5, 7 or something. So
Yeah.
they were a little bit older, but they'd have a tantrum and I would say, what would happen to you if I just gave you what you wanted when you asked like that? And my daughter would get really quiet and she would be like, I would become spoiled. And I would say, well, do you want to be spoiled? No. Okay, then how would you ask? Like, what's a non-spoiled way? She got the chance to be like, do you want to be spoiled? Sure, go keep shouting in this story, like lie on your back and bang,
Yeah. Oh man.
That was pretty mean. Pretty mean. I would kind of put it right on them, like, you want to be spoiled? Because we could spoil you,
Yeah. That's funny.
One of the criticisms I, as a parent, that I had for not, like I was walking with my sister when my sister's daughter was 2, let's say. And I was this overprotective dad who would like leap to sort of save someone who'd skinned their knee. And I was like really like comforting and tried to sort of help them not be crying. I was like my natural instinct, right? People would call me like a Jewish mother trapped in a Scottish man's body. Like they just were like, that's who you are, right?
Yeah.
So my sisters were running along, my niece is running ahead of us and there's like a place in the sidewalk where it's lifted up and she just face plants, like boom, like both knees, red, elbows, palms. And I leaped forward and my sister put her hand on me and said, wait, let her have a react. So she got up and you could tell she was like deciding whether to cry or not.
Yeah.
And then she wanted
they even look at you guys sometimes in those moments, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And
how
she-
are my parents reacting? Is this as bad as I think it is?
Yeah.
And they get their cue from you
And
on
she
whether
brushed
it is.
she kind of brushed the dirt off of her knees. And then she was so determined to get wherever she was going that she just started running again. And I was like, wow, I would have intervened.
Well,
if it
and,
was my
and
child,
you wonder, like, so my wife and I are very different in that regard too. And a lot of times she's very much the be careful type, right?
Yeah.
Like, be careful, don't do that, don't climb on that, don't touch that.
Yep. this might
you're
happen.
gonna hurt.
if you-
You're
yeah.
going to hurt yourself, right? Like it's not even about responding to the hurt that is. It's about like preventing the hurt that might be in a lot of cases.
Right,
And
right.
and I look at that and I go, I sort of look at that and I go, she is not trying. Like there's a aspect where she's trying to prevent hurt to the children or whatever, some harm. But there's a big part of that is just like she herself doesn't want to go through the anguish of seeing the hurt.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And
No,
so
no,
like in
trying to
those
avoid that.
moments that you have to, as a parent, are you running to intervene for them or for you? Like to what extent is it for them or versus for you, your own? Are you self-soothing or are you soothing them? Right. Like that's a thing that I wonder about sometimes in those moments.
That's a good point. I think about my mom. I remember we would run around, like we'd put towels around our necks with a baby pin, and we'd pretend to be Batman and Robin, and we'd like just tear around the house, up and down the stairs, and jump over the railing. And my mom would shout, someone's gonna get a bloody nose, someone's gonna crash or hurt themselves.
Right.
And then like weeks would go by, and then one day we would like slam into each other, and like we'd get a bloody nose. My mom would be like, "I told you," and I would say, "Mom, if you say it every time, like
Right, it's gonna
700
happen
times,
once, yeah.
eventually it's going to happen." So like you can't be like, "I told you," because you just say it every time. So,
Right.
So that was like a big lesson for me. Like I never wanted to do that to my kids.
At least she let you run around. I think like I see, so my wife and her sister grew up in like very much a be careful household. Like they were so overprotected. So I think it's, like it's just their natural kind of way. Like their mom was way worse than they are in that regard. And so like, I think like she would, like her thing is like, stop running around. Like, cause that thing, like the bloody nose is going to happen. Right. Like, like she would just put a stop to the running. At least your mom didn't put a stop to they let you run around and just sort of like threw the consequences idea out there for you.
Well, I would say though,
There's a lot of prohibition that happens and that I'm fighting against in this house. I feel like, and I think my wife and I are like a good balance in that way. Like we're completely opposite. Like I'm much more like just allow the shit to unfold. Yeah. And she's like, I want to mitigate and prevent any possibility of any kind of catastrophe. Right.
Yeah.
And so we meet in the middle somewhere, but I think I've nudged her a little bit out of her.
Yeah, I think especially
and she probably has given me a little bit more prudence too.
If you can demonstrate like value in your method and not like be overly like preachy about like then maybe you can kind of assimilate or sort of.
I think we've met in the middle a little bit, but like probably err on the side. And it just depends which both of us is in the house at the moment.
So I'm gonna start by saying I absolutely adore my mom. I'm going to say like everyone in the family would say I'm my mom's favorite. It's just one of those things like we've always had like, and I think part of it is that we have a similar nervous system. It's almost like that ROM chip that was on the motherboard.
Yeah.
I got like high anxiety, high sensitivity, like all these things. Mm-hmm. So, but I've had to like work with her read-only memory code, the start. and so that's what a lot of in therapy, my therapist would sit back and she would be like, you have a highly overactive amygdala. Where does that come from?
Yeah.
And I would think back and it's true. Like it's in that sort of psychoanalytic way, like my mom. And so one thing, the way my mom would never ban us from running around, but she would use guilt.
Yeah.
Guilt.
Yeah.
And she would, and it was interesting. And like, for instance, at one point I had low blood sugar, which is caused by eating too much sugar. Like your insulin will tank you.
The crash.
So we're at the doctor's. I'm probably like 6 years old or 5. And my mom says, and he takes this like Hershey's Quick and he puts like this much chocolate in the bottom and then he goes crazy. And the doctor just goes, well, who buys it for him?
Right.
And my mom just sort of sits back and because she like let us have things because she's like, but
totally.
I love you and I want you to have Quick, but you overdo it. And it's so like we felt.
I see that drives me nuts a little bit with I mean, it's bless her heart, but like, yeah, I see that kind of thing a lot. And it's just, so the larger meta thing there that I see a lot is just this idea that your kids, the idea that kids can decide stuff. Like an adult can is, I think, this weirdly prevalent thing that so many parents have. Like we just tend as humans to imagine ourselves, to imagine other people think about things basically like we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just a natural bias we all have. And so I think we transfer that we project that onto our kids too, right? Like the idea that so this is another one that like my wife and I get a little bit, like we kind of battle about a little bit, like when my son will just sort of say something a little bit like talk backy, sassy, backsass, or like just not respectful. Mm-hmm. He'll be, to her because he's losing his temper about something, and he won't be speaking to her in a kind of a respect. He'll say like, "Get out of my room" or something to his mom, right? Just like something you kind of shouldn't say to your mom, right? And so her reaction to kind of that is he's being disrespectful. And she gets mad, like he isn't respecting me, kind of thing. Like and then I'll say like he's just losing his temper. You know what I mean? Like, and so for her it's like this. I think he's a kid. Like he just has hormones that are coursing through him, and in that moment they caused him to lose his temper. And so there's some truth to both things. But like when you're dysregulated, when you're losing your temper, you're not really in control of the words that are coming out of your mouth and how you say them. Like, so for me, the idea of being respectful or disrespectful in a moment where you're where you're just dysregulated as a human, it's not even like a concept that makes sense to me. He's neither being respectful nor disrespectful. He's just losing his temper.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. How do you think about that? And I think that's sort of the same thing with like, like that's what I relate that to the quick thing, because it's like you're a parent, like you are the one who has like you've achieved rationality in your life. Like your kid is a kid, his brain isn't fully developed, right? Your brain is fully developed. So you have this capacity of reason that your child doesn't have. And when it comes to Nestle Quick, you have this capacity to regulate that a child just simply doesn't biologically have that capacity. So don't expect them to. Don't like project onto them this idea that they have that when it's coming from your brain.
The other thing we've talked about this before, but you know how like especially in males, the frontal lobe doesn't fully stop developing until around the age 26.
Yeah,
I've read that in several different places, and so like that's the thing that governs risk assessment. Empathy, the ability to sort of think of other people over yourself.
Theory of mind, all that.
Yeah, if you're 10 years old or 13 years old, like you don't have the mechanism.
No, you just don't even have it. Right.
Yeah, you can't. I remember my dad used to yell at me.
We'll get in a little bit of a fight because I just don't even accept the premise of the idea that he's being disrespectful in that moment. Like he has no control in that moment. For me, that's the reality. He has no control in that moment. And you can put this other kind of concept onto it, but that's not what's happening.
Right.
Anyway, that's my perspective on it. I don't know. But we fight about that sometimes, she and I.
It's interesting because one of the things that I learned, like so when I got divorced and I had kids in Pima County where I live, the judge won't grant you a divorce until you take this like 5-hour class. And everyone has to take it, right? Like you and I was like, oh, give me a break. It was absolutely fucking amazing. It was so well done. Huh. One of the things that I learned was I came in and I guess we broke up into little groups, maybe 70 people in a big auditorium, and then we'd break up into like little groups of 5 and share our story and stuff based on the topic, right?
What a thing to make you do with a bunch of strangers.
Well, yeah, and but so what I learned first of all was I had come in there just so bummed about my divorce, and I got like I was like, oh my God, like I won the divorce lottery because like people are saying like, and then my ex-husband kidnapped my daughter from school and took them to New Mexico and had to call the police, and someone's doing drugs, and like they blew up that backyard with meth, and I'm like. Yeah. There were like gangster kids. There was dentists who were 80 years old. There were, it just was like totally diverse. Yeah. Complete diversity across the population.
And you're like, oh, my wife realized she's somebody different.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, ours is going really, really well. Like, oh my God, I'm so lucky. So anyway, one of the things that they really were adamant about what they said. It's important for the divorced parents to present a united front, which is hard to do. Like, cause you you know how, imagine if you have a very different philosophy around that, but once you're divorced and the kids are like going back and forth between houses, they will work the shit out of you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But mom doesn't make me do that. Dad, like dad, we don't have that rule at dad's house. And so like, they're just, and they're making, then you feel bad, like maybe I'm being too strict and blah, blah, blah. So they said like, try, if you can, to present a united front about like, when's homework time? When's like, how do you eat food? And you know what I mean? Like just so that there's regularity and rhythm and there's not like this crazy discrepancy between one culture, household culture and the other. And that was pretty easy for me to do because we were still in communication.
Yeah.
And we had done like a ceremony where we committed to being co-parents instead of married partners, So I felt like that. And then the other thing was they said, it's very important for you to let your child continue, after the separation where you're no longer a couple, to let your child's relationship with the other parent develop independently of your, like, don't project onto the other parent so that the child, you know what I mean? And I made that mistake. Before I took the class, I was sort of openly transparent about what was going on. And some of the blame, not blame, but some of the sort of root cause.
Some of the resentment stuff, maybe.
Or even more like the root cause, sort of like I was in this thing of like, I love being married and I want to be married and this isn't my choice, kind of that sort of thing. Putting it on the other person.
Right.
And I took the class and they were like, you know what? Just let all that shit go and watch your kid continue to develop the relationship with the other parent independent of your judgment. Just keep your mouth shut and you can talk to your friends, talk to your
That's
therapist.
probably so much easier said than done for a lot of people. Yeah.
Totally. But I remember thinking like,
because think about those other divorces where you're so angry at that other person.
Yeah.
So angry.
Yeah. And you think that the way and part of the sort of,
well, and you want to get back at them, right? And so people have probably a temptation to use their child as a weapon in that fight, right?
And part of the you could sometimes, and I don't actually know because your parents got divorced, but sometimes kids take on like, it's my fault. Like my parents were fighting about me and they just kept getting worse and worse and worse. So
I remember like going to the family therapist and having them say that. And I remember feeling like, and maybe I just wasn't in touch with parts of myself, but I remember thinking like, what?
It's not my fault.
Like that did not connect with me at all. See, like I already felt like weirdly disconnected from both my parents always. Yeah. And so yeah, to me that was like I think I was very sad and upset when my parents split up. But like I was like I think my emotional take on it was like, why are you doing this to us?
Like you're annoyed. You were annoyed.
No, like I was hurt. I was
hurt.
I felt really wounded and betrayed. But it was very much like you are wounding us. You are inflicting this trauma on us children. It wasn't like, what did we do to make you? I never had that feeling like, what did we do to make you guys break up? It was more like, why are you inflicting such pain on me?
You didn't need that Robin Williams, where in the Good Will Hunting, where he's like, "It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault." Like, remember that?
No, I didn't need that.
Didn't need that.
No, but yeah. So like, I mean, I think my experience of my parents' divorce, it was probably pretty substantially different than either of my siblings. I mean, we turned out very differently. I think we were at very different ages, and yeah, I think it affected all three of us really deeply, but in very different ways. Like I think our deep psychological and emotional response to that was different, very different from each other.
Right.
I've thought about that a lot over the years.
Interesting.
Yeah, because for me it was like I lived in this idyllic childhood, and then it just changed overnight to this like trauma. And that's what it felt like. Like, but like my brother, he was only 8 and at that moment, when my parents split up, 7 or 8. And so for him, I think being 7 or 8 was very different than for me. I was 13 and, feeling like, oh, I lived 13 years in this one life and now I have a different life.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like to me.
I remember, this is a topic for another session because we're over an hour, but there was something that I found very interesting that you said you were both the first child and the second child.
Oh, yeah.
Because you had a brother who died.
Yeah.
And how old was he?
Yeah, he was a year and a half older than me. Yeah, he died right before I was born.
Oh, wow. So a year and a half is enough to bond with the parents, and he had a personality and.
No, he didn't. And so it's a whole tragedy, and we would probably leave it for another day, but I'll just, the very short version is, as far as I understand it, it was a totally normal pregnancy. And then during the birth, the umbilical cord was constricted. Ooh. And caused severe brain damage to him during his birth.
Yeah.
And so he was born with severe brain damage. He couldn't talk.
I see.
He never learned to talk or really communicate. My parents put him in. They tried to, raise him, and it just, at some point they were persuaded, and my mom still feels some guilt, deep guilt about this. They basically made the decision to put him in a home, like a nursing care facility.
Yep.
And so they didn't even have him at home when he died. So they, I think for the last 4 or 5 months of his life, he was just in this care facility. So I think they hadn't really bonded with him in a way, but that was its own trauma. I think my mom, when I was born healthy, but very quiet, as in my mom's telling of things. I just was a very low key baby. I didn't cry very much. I didn't laugh very much. I was super just even keel. And so, having this other brain damaged child before me, my mom kind of wasn't certain about how healthy I was, and just always sort of projected this idea that I was also maybe so she kept her, I think she kept her distance from me in some ways emotionally, and protected herself from the idea that I might die. And so I think that in its own way made me something sort of a little bit strange in terms of emotional connections. I think my emotional connection to my mom early on was stunted by that, by her self-protection.
And sort of the reason I brought it up was this idea that, there's a lot of data and a lot of recent studies about birth order. There's a lot of indicators that say the older child just is able to, generate more financial wealth or this. There's a lot of just actual concrete data around what it means to be born second or third, And it's interesting to me because in some ways, it sounds like, your older brother was not didn't have an impact on the child culture, in other words, didn't have a personality.
But there was something there that persisted because we talked about him a lot. We would sort of invoke his name a lot.
What was his name?
We were constantly, Neil was his name.
Okay.
What's interesting is that his birthday, my younger brother has the same birthday as he had.
Wow.
Very, very crazy coincidence, yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, that's interesting, and we fun to talk about birth order because what's come up for us over the years is that fear of failure or trying something from scratch, right? And I always said, my mom would say, my sister was a year and a half older, like Neil was for you, and so she could walk, run around when I could crawl. And my mom said I was so determined to follow her that I made my elbows bloody. Dragging them on the rug, just I was determined to, and what I learned from her was everything I try to do, I'm pretty much going to fail and I have to just try harder again, do it again, until I can do it. And so it ingrained in me this thing,
a
you
second
always,
child kind of
you will always suck.
Yeah.
Until you try hard, and eventually you might get good.
Yeah.
So
that's a great quality to have. Yeah.
But my sister would complain and say, for instance, we took drawing lessons in one summer, and she stopped after the first class, and she said, "Well, I'm not very good at it." And my mom was like, "Well, you have to try." And she goes, "No, I just suck at it." So it's interesting how if you were the first kid, you just think if I'm not good at it right off the bat, that must be not for me, you know. Whereas the second child always sucked at everything until they tried hard, you know.
Interesting. Yeah.
So it just has to me that was always like my experience, you know. Anyway, should we do first world problems?
Yeah, I don't have one though.
That's a first world benefit then to not have a first world problem.
Okay.
I had thought of the perfect
I feel
one.
like I always think of 5 or 6 during the week, and then when it comes down to it, I should write them down.
Yeah, I thought of the perfect one 2 days ago or on Tuesday, and then I can't remember what it is. But
All right.
but instead of doing my first world problem, I'll go back and say back when we were talking about I didn't have the skill to do those like comebacks, like quick comebacks.
Yeah.
That's what was fun about writing this, thinking, waiting, being stung, and writing a long text back to this potential, employer, because it felt like I gave myself the emotional space and then the time to really think through what I wanted to say. So it felt like sort of very poetic and modularly like clear, you know, there wasn't any kind of,
Cool.
yeah, that's all. It's just like once, you know, it'd be fun to be able to give yourself that in the moment. If you could somehow compress time, you know, freeze time.
That would be good. Maybe that's what true wisdom is.
All right, man. Well, so always good to talk to you. Satellite Haiku.
Peace.
Talk to you soon. Yep, peace.
Satellites? A satellite represents a journey, information gathering, this journey around the Earth.